What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Welcome to the number one ranked show clip, where we just need to talk about Ohio State's 48-45 win against Utah in the Rose Bowl. Look, coming into this one, didn't know what to expect with Chris Olave choosing to opt out for the NFL draft, Garrett Wilson choosing to opt out for the NFL draft, and yet and still, there was this sneaking suspicion that Brian Hartline's receiving core would star in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day with C.J. Stroud back there and Travion Henderson back there. Expected the offense to go off, but what we did not expect is Jaxon Smith-Njigba to set the all-time bowl record for receiving yards in a game with 347 receiving yards. JSN had one hell of a game in a game of games, quite honestly. It's 35-21 at one point, and Ohio State fans are beside themselves because this is what Oklahoma felt like in 2018, when your offense is absolutely moving the football and your defense can't seem to stop anybody. Now, Ryan Day has taken steps to remedy this, hiring Jim Knowles away from Oklahoma State to coordinate the defense in 2022. But goodness me, man, I was expecting C.J. Stroud to have a day, and he did. 563 passing yards. But that's overshadowed. That's overshadowed because the dude wearing number 11 put the squad on his back. And he had help, right? Coming into this game, Marvin Harrison Jr. had 5 total catches for the season. He had 3 touchdown receptions for a Rose Bowl record in this game. So think about it this way. You lose 2 probable first-round picks at wide receiver, and you replace them with Marvin Harrison Jr., and Julian Fleming, and Emeka Egbuka, who was absolutely doing some work out there. Not so much in the receiving game, but certainly in the return game. And that's just what it's been like for them on that receiving core. And it's different for Ohio State, who has been primarily known for running the football. I mean, the only 2-time Heisman winner in the sport's history is a running back at Ohio State. Eddie George played running back at Ohio State. Ezekiel Elliott, Beanie Wells, Maurice Clarett. We can keep going, is the point here. We have not seen the likes of this kind of receiving core at Ohio State ever, right? I mean, you could probably take it back to Terry Glenn and them, Santonio Holmes and them. But even those dudes are not on par with what Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson had done this year. C.J. Stroud goes over 4,000 yards passing and comes just short of 4,500 yards passing for the season. Again, just not numbers that we're used to seeing from Ohio State quarterbacks until Ryan Day showed up, right? Dwayne Haskins is that dude. Justin Fields is that dude. But you could even make an argument. You could see the offense starting to change the moment that Urban Meyer hired Ryan Day. And this game was emotional for him because, A, they lost the game, which means they didn't get to play in the Big Ten Championship, which means they didn't make the college football playoff. So there was all these questions for over a month about how would Ohio State respond in the Rose Bowl against the Pac-12 champion Utah, who was surging. And I got to tell you, Utah came out like Beth Dutton at the dining room table, spoiling for a fight, going, I dare you to challenge me. And it felt like Ohio State did not have any John Dutton in them. Not a lick until the second half, when Ryan Day said, look, we had a conversation. We said, okay, what are we going to do here? Are we going to come out and we're going to play a little football? Is that what we're going to do? Are we going to play to our abilities? And that is what they did, right? Now, you got some issues to fix at linebacker. We know about that. We know that you didn't have everybody you would like to have on that defensive line. And certainly you could do some work in the secondary. But Ronnie Hickman made the defensive play of the game, stopping Utah so that Ohio State gets the ball back. They tie it up. And then it felt like from there, Ohio State was going to do what Ohio State does offensively. And you can't really fault that. I don't even want to say fault that. You can't overestimate or underestimate. You can't underestimate what that means, because sometimes the offense might falter. Like the defense of Utah faltered when it actually was on their shoulders. When Cam Rising went out of the game after getting knocked out, they crumbled, man. And then you had some horrible clock management by Kyle Whittingham late. They didn't use their timeouts. They let the clock run down to where Noah Ruggles could kick a 19-yard field goal, chip shot for him, and win the game 48-45. When it felt like they used their timeouts, perhaps they could at least force a longer field goal and perhaps get the ball back in time to go do something with it. But it felt like Cam Rising going out really deflated Utah altogether, and I felt really terrible for them. But as terrible as I felt for them, Jaxon Smith-Njigba having the game he did, perhaps had the quote of the night for many. For some, if it hits you, it hits you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I understand that. But I want to put it out there anyway. He said, when asked about his performance, did he expect to go off like this? He said, look, I prayed for this. I can't be surprised by what I prayed for. Now, wherever you fall, having faith in anything at all, right, especially self, I choose to bow to that, because self-doubt is within us all, and whatever we have to lean on to have faith to come through is what we do, and that man has faith. I mean, talk to folks at Rockwall, Texas, where he played high school football, and they would tell you that Rockwall team had no business being good, but that dude was a one-man wrecking crew. So when he showed up at Ohio State, it felt like he might get lost in the shuffle, because the last two classes of wide receivers have just been phenomenal. Julian Fleming was the number one wide receiver in the class of 2020, and he's still just the third best receiver on this depth chart after Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave have left. And let's not forget, the third best receiver in 2020, Jameson Williams, is the best receiver on the number one team in the country who plays for the national championship on January 10th in Jameson Williams. That's ridiculous. That's what Brian Hartline has done for recruiting. That's what Ryan Day has done in their offensive play calling. And that's what we have to look forward to in 2022. This Ohio State team is fun, you know, and I had so much fun watching them play for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is Ohio State fans are rabid. They're everywhere, they're enormous, and they're all over it. Number two, it's a fun team to watch, and I get such joy out of watching fun football teams. I don't care how good or bad you are. Give me a good show. And I thought about this around the college football playoff and how crappy those games were. Man, the Fiesta Bowl was great. Spencer Sanders had 496 total yards, set the Fiesta Bowl record for total yardage in a game. They came back from 21 down, scored 30 unanswered against a great Notre Dame team who was playing lights out football. It would have been a great quarterfinal. The Rose Bowl today, the Pac-12 champ versus perhaps the third best team in the Big Ten. That would have been a great quarterfinal. These New Year's Day slate of games, from the Fiesta Bowl to the Outback Bowl, where Arkansas put up 361 yards rushing and 90 yards passing, looking like a service academy out there, and was down 10-7 at half, wins 24-10. Kentucky, Iowa, outstanding. Wan'Dale Robinson had all of 900-plus yards receiving in 2 years at Nebraska and 91 catches. This year, he has over 100 catches and over 1,300 yards receiving, and was, for Kentucky, what Jaxon Smith-Njigba was for Ohio State. They win their bowl game in the Verbo Strickers Bowl against Iowa, who, goodness me, it's just, it sucks. They lose the Big Ten championship. They lose this game. But these games have been good. And this is as Baylor and Ole Miss are going at it in the Sugar Bowl. New Year's Day still holds up, right? And it holds up even more if you were privileged enough to watch what I'm going to call from now on the Jaxon Smith-Njigba game. That dude's 5 straight games of 100 yards receiving or more. Probably going to break Chris Carter's record in 2022. Goes for 100 more. He's got a bunch of records at Ohio State already, and he is set up to leave Ohio State as the best wide receiver in school history. Want to get on here and talk a little bit about that. Remember to subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all later. Deuces.